Ana Kasparian sat down with Patrick Bet-David, and not only did she destroy the legacy media, which we filmed a video on, talking about why she distrusts it, but there also is a heated moment and a heated exchange between PBD and Ana Kasparian regarding transitioning children.
But when it comes to some transgender issues, there is a lot on the line, right? Like when we do talk about kids transitioning, you want to make sure that we have a system in place where there's a proper protocol implemented to ensure that we're not transitioning kids who might not actually be transgender.
You think it's okay to transition kids under the age of 18, even if the parents consent?
What do you mean, medically?
Medically. Ana, you seem very smart to me, and I think you have common sense.
Yeah, I do have common sense. I think it's a very difficult question to answer.
It's not a difficult question to answer.
Okay, I think that it is a problem when certain states completely ban it, because there are instances of, let's say, teenagers who identify as transgender, they're legitimately transgender, and I don't want to cause harm to those people, right? I think it's a decision that should be left between the parents and the doctors. But at the same time, there are certain things going on where I do worry. Like, I don't know if you guys have read about the Tavistock clinic in the UK that's shut down. And the reason why it shut down is because it just became this system of transitioning minors without really doing the proper protocols to ensure that they're working with people who are legitimately transgender.
Okay, so you're 14 years old. I don't know if you said 14 or 13 years old. When your mom tells you, what do you want to be? You said, I want to go be an actress. So she's not going to be a Pachatsats, right? And you said, I'm going to go be a Barbara Walters. Why don't you go be a journalist? Okay,
right.
That's exactly what I want to do. And I go, okay. What if your mom doesn't say that to you? What if your mom doesn't put that in your head? What if you go into Hollywood? Maybe your life's going to be a different story today. I don't know what it's going to be, good, bad, or ugly, but it's going to be a different life.
That's probably what.
But what I'm saying, it's going to be a very different life. I actually think you would, because you have drive, but it's going to be a different life, no matter what direction you would have gone to. But the point I want to make is with this whole concept of even entertaining the thought of it being okay before the age of 18, then that means, like my idea, I have a controversial idea. I would rather have a 15-year-old kid that has a job paying taxes vote than a 28-year-old person who's never had a job, never paid taxes. That person shouldn't vote. So some people say, you're out of your mind. I get it. It's not a normal idea that I'm proposing. You have the right to say you're out of your mind. But what my idea is, I want to give people the right to vote who earned the right to vote, who have contributed to society, minus those who have disabilities, things like that. That's not what I'm talking about, or elderly. All I'm talking about is a 15-year-old person should have the right to vote, who is paying taxes, has a W-2 job, has paid $3,000 of taxes, whatever, versus 28-year-old who hasn't. But this concept of saying, yeah, I think my son told me, he's a girl, and we have to do this, and da-da-da-da, and they're crying, getting emotional. I think we have to be a little less tolerant to stupidity and insanity. If you're 19 years old and you say, like my kids will say, that my son is having this tattoo conversation with me. Here we go. And you know which son it is. He's like, hey, but such and such has tattoos. I said, but Michael Jordan didn't have tattoos. He said, that's a good point. I said, Brady doesn't have tattoos. By the way, I hope these guys don't have tattoos in weird places. All I know is I've never seen tattoos.
You don't know.
Michael could have a tattoo of goat somewhere you're never going to see. But all I'm saying is these guys are just like, what about this? And what if I want to get it? I'm like, dude, let me just put it to you this way. When you're 18, you can get it. Till then, I'm not going to support you getting a tattoo. After that, do your thing. My goal is to try to encourage you, and as much as I can, to one day not do this, right?
Right. I mean, but that's your parental right. Okay. So I think that I get uncomfortable getting in between a parent, their child, and their doctor.
Here is the main issue I find with this concept. If we were abandoning morality and abandoning God in this situation, and we were removing that totally, which I never suggest doing ever, we were on a completely hypothetical. Okay. I don't think that any doctor would ever be comfortable performing, should ever be comfortable performing. And I think, honestly, the reason why doctors are okay with this is because of maltreatment in the first place, or malpractice, however you want to call it. I think that from my experiences with doctors, it has almost never been good. Never. My dad, when I was 16, wasn't living at the house with my parents, and my dad had really bad back pain, and he couldn't walk. And I remember carrying him to the car, take him to the ER, because he could not stand up and move or walk or anything. And you know what the doctors did? The doctors gave him 6 weeks worth of Percocet drugs. And they said, we don't know what's going on, and we're going to give you drugs to take you off the pain. I don't know how that's okay. I don't know how that's acceptable. I don't know how you could be a doctor, see a man who is healthy, good physical shape, early 40s, and could feel all right, not helping the issue and just giving him painkillers. I don't understand that. That's something that I feel like is an injustice, honestly, to Americans everywhere. Now, come to find out, what had happened is a doctor had recommended a testosterone shot into my dad's back to make him feel better, okay? And my dad, earlier that day, or maybe earlier the day before, he got that testosterone shot in his back, and he was feeling great. He had a really bad reaction, and it ended up like eroding or rupturing part of his spine. And when he went to the doctors to figure this out, I don't know if there was a cover-up. I don't know what was happening, but we didn't find out about that until almost a year later. For 6 months, my dad couldn't walk. I mean, you're going to tell me that that's not a slippery slope into transitioning? Because I think that's it. I think when you stop fixing issues and you start giving monthly subscriptions so that you can keep making money year round from insurance companies and from this, I think it's greed, ultimately. I think you can make a lot of money off of a kid from puberty blockers, and potentially a lot more money when it comes to double mastectomies, and potentially a lot more money whenever it comes to gender reassignment surgery. I honestly, I think that's what it is. I think this is about money. And hormones, expensive. Surgery, expensive. You just became a top tier client. If I were to treat it like a business, you're a top tier client.
Right. I actually do believe in parental rights. And so I do have an issue with some of these schools and school districts promoting policies of keeping parents in the dark when it comes to their child transitioning.
That's in the state of California sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that, understand, look, I think that like in the state of Florida, in the legislation that they passed, there are exceptions for kids who might, like, if there's reason to believe that their parents are going to be abusive, if they're informed of this, right? There is a carve out in the legislation in Florida to ensure that the teachers have the ability to withhold that information from an abusive parent or abusive parents. I think that's important because there are cases of parents who are abusive and might be awful to their kids, might maybe beat them, might disown them if they find out they're trans. So that's why I think it is important to have protections for those kids. However, at the same time, we've all acknowledged that the suicide rates among transgender people are high. And if I had a child who started identifying as transgender and I was not informed about it, I would lose my mind because I would be concerned that I'm not there to help with my child's mental health.
But those are two different things. So I want you to go, okay, so are you saying that a parent should have the right to allow their kids to transition and change their sex? You're saying that should be the parent's consent?
Yes, but I do think that there should be protocols in place and safeguards in place in the medical industry.
Let's go one step forward.
Yeah, and by the way, let me be clear. So when we talk about medical transition, I'm not talking about surgeries.
I'm talking surgery and taking the hormones and stuff like that.
Okay, so puberty blockers, I think, should not be like outlawed. Okay, so there's puberty blockers, and then there are the cross-sex hormones.
Pre-18 puberty blockers you're okay with?
I think in instances where there is a proper protocol in place to ensure.
But I'm not. So there's no science. Let me wrap up this. We haven't seen what the outcome of these 20. It hasn't been 20 years to see how much these kids are going to have suicide. I think at 14 years old, I get what you're saying. The parent, it's your kids. I would never get involved. I could give a suggestion, but to alter a child's biological makeup in the long run, I just don't.
Here's a question.
The thing with puberty blockers is it depends on how long they're taking it, right? If they're taking it for a long period of time, there are possible side effects that are damaging and it would cause irreparable harm. So I understand where you're coming from. When it comes to the surgeries, though, I'm entirely against the surgeries.
Okay, so that's good. So that's good.
Yeah, I guess that's good, but ultimately at the end of the day, I don't think it's good enough. I don't think it's good enough. And listen, like, we're seeing lower testosterone in the younger generation, and because of this, we're seeing a mental health crisis as well, lack of discipline, lack of drive, ambition, and it's overall this depression that young men are having. And a lot of this can be because of terrible sleep, unhealthy diet, specifically like microplastics, unhealthy water. What are you eating? And all of this contributes to your testosterone being lowered. And I find it kind of odd that if I had low T and I went to a doctor's office, the first thing they would give me is antidepressants and stimulants. That's what they'd do. And I know this because I literally went to a doctor's office. And they wanted to give me Adderall and sleep medication, which you guys don't know. Both of those things will lower your testosterone as well. And I said, yeah, before I get into that, I'd like to get a blood panel and see my hormones and see what my testosterone range is. I think if that was higher, if my thyroid was healthy, my liver's functioning properly, I'm not, having this rise in estrogen, everything's functioning. Oh, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Dude, I'm 20 years old. This should have been your first thought. And it wasn't. It was immediately, let's get him on the subscriptions, I'm paying that monthly check, get out of his insurance, and let's get him out of here. Ridiculous. What do you guys think? Leave a comment down below. If you guys like this video and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.